I'm ready.
All right, welcome to episode 1 of Talking to the Titans of Training. My name is Dr. Charles Cotter. This is the very first episode. I've got a very special guest, Derek Hendrikz, who will be joining me very shortly. I've got a couple of questions and I'd like to have an open discussion with him. Just before we get to the main event, which is Derek, just give you a bit of the backstory. My name is Dr. Charles Cotter. I'm an independent online learning navigator, learning development strategist. I've been in the industry for over 19 years, global talent development, been very privileged to work with a whole host of different organizations. And the backstory is that I've always been very serious that I've felt that trainers often undervalued as a profession. And the purpose of talking to the Titans of Training is just to showcase and to create opportunities where we can celebrate and also acknowledge the work, the careers, and the contributions of the Titans of Training. So that's the whole purpose of the session. And like I said, Derek Hendrikz, who's a global trainer, strategist, and also the originator of Otology, will be joining me very shortly. And I think I'm very excited. And this is a series of 30-minute online conversations. And our very next guest, Graham Lartachan, will be joining us next week, Tuesday. These conversations will be published on YouTube. So maybe if I could just get some of the digital housekeeping out of the road. If you could just like and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also click the notify button, which will then alert you to the subsequent episodes. We're going to be publishing them bi-weekly, and this will be on a Monday and a Friday. So I look forward to that, and we'll be sharing Derek's contact details at the end of this interview, and also my contact details. So you're welcome to connect with us, and if you have any questions and if you'd like to nominate other trainers you believe are worthy of the Titans of Training, you're welcome to include that in the comment section of this particular clip. So at this point, I'd like to invite my guest, Derek Hendrikz. Derek Hendrikz is a renowned trainer. I think Derek, over 25 years of industry experience in global talent development, worked with over 200 different companies, 27 different countries, probably one of the most impressive resumes in the global training community. So thank you for accepting my invitation and joining the very first episode of Talking to the Titans of Training.
Thank you, Charles. It's good to be here, and it's good to speak to you again.
Great, thanks. Derek, let's get straight away. So perhaps if you could just give us the genesis of your career in training. So where did it all start? You know, the when, the where, the who, and also if you could share some of the mentors in the early days, the mentors and coaches that certainly supported you, that guided you. Who were these individuals, and what sort of influence did they have on your career development as you embarked on your journey as a global international trainer?
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Well, that's taking it way back. I think the way I entered training was really by accident. You know, in our days, when we left school, you had a few choices, you know, army, police, or jail. And, you know, so I went to the South African Police Service, didn't really like it much. I wasn't the military type. And my station commander at that stage, which was in South Coast Aberdeen, gave me, you know, in Afrikaans we call it strafdiens. It's you know, almost
Form of discipline.
A discipline, yeah, punishment.
Yeah.
I had to train the reservists, the police reservists. These are people that do voluntary work at the police station.
That's a huge challenge.
Yeah, nobody wanted to do that. You know, everybody was shying away from that.
Yeah.
And I was only 20 years old, I think. And I loved it, you know. I just loved it. That was the best thing that anybody could ever do for me. It was to put me in that situation. I loved it so much. I organized the transfer up to the South African Police College, and there I became a trainer. And then later on, also in the management development services. You asked me who are my mentors. There were so many. You know, there were many people that influenced me heavily in the training industry. In the police service, I was fortunate to work with fantastic trainers. You know, we were the management development section, only a few of us, and we trained the management cadre of the police. So these were really good trainers, and we also had the opportunity to get trained by international trainers, by universities. Wits University played a big role there.
Sure.
but for me, the people who really influenced me were the big guys, you know, the Stephen Coveys and Peter Sengi's and these heavyweights, these international, you know, that was always my dream,
Sure.
to have the impact that these guys have on the world. That's about in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. So just reading into what you were saying, you know, one of my questions is obviously going to be, what are the critical success factors to prosper and to thrive in this very ultra competitive global training industry? But what I'm hearing is you know, it starts out with a vision. I think it's very clear to me you had a vision. You weren't just prepared to settle for second best. You wanted to benchmark against the global thought leaders, you know, best in practice, etc. And also the passion, you know. So would you agree that those are two critical success factors? You know, when you start out in this training journey, you need to have a vision, and you also need to be very passionate about the training industry. So you almost ended up in training by default. It's almost like training found you, and you didn't find training. But would you agree that having this vision and this passion for training, would you say those are two critical success factors that have been drivers of your business success over the years?
I would definitely say that. I think passion is something that you experience. It's not something that you can grow. You like something or you don't.
Yeah.
You know, you would know that one of the biggest fears for humans are talking in front of other people. You know, there's people who fear death less than that.
Yeah.
So, you know, for us, it's a natural thing. We don't have that fear. I've always been anxious when I'm in front of people. Even today, after I've spoken to thousands of people, you know, I still have that anxiety.
Yeah.
But it's a good anxiety. You know, it's something that keeps you on your toes, and you know, you've got a responsibility, and you must try and articulate well. So the passion finds you. You know, if you do, I think who was the guy who wrote the book 1 Minute Manager?
Ken Blanchard.
Yeah, Ken Blanchard. He said it beautifully. He said that you know that you find your passion if time moves and you don't notice it. You know, so if you're busy with something for 2 or 3 hours or 8 hours and it feels like a few minutes, then you found your passion.
Absolutely.
You know, and I've watched some people in front of audiences. You know, 2 minutes you can see these guys they're dying. You know, they can't stay there. But for us trainers, you know, that's a comfortable place. And then once you have that and you know that this is what you love, then the vision, of course, you know, the dream has to be there. If you don't have the dream, then what takes you into the future? You know, the future is made of an idea. So yes.
Yeah, thanks for that. So almost humble beginnings, with all due respect, starting out in the SAPS Police Training College Management Development. You're 20 years old. You're almost a rookie, very green as a trainer. Fast forward, just take us through, how did you get to the status of being this international trainer, working for over 200 companies, 27 different countries? How did you go from the Police Training College to the global stage of training? If you could just spend about 2-3 minutes just talking us through your journey. How did you get to the point where you realized that you were ready to leave the military environment, the regimental environment, and then, you know, test yourself on the global stage? If you could just talk us through this career transition that you made from the police force to being a global trainer.
My passion, my love for training was much greater than my love for the police service. You know, so I was never a loyal police person. That wasn't. To be honest, my last few years in the police, I didn't even have a gun, or neither did I wear a uniform. You know, we just, because we fulfill the training function. And many of the people with me, they would apply for posts in the police, you know, a senior post and so forth. And I never did that because my passion was training. I knew that this is what I want to do. I don't want to, this is not about having a job in the police service. This was about training.
Yep.
And what happened with us is, I think it was in 95, 96, the University of Witwatersrand, Wits University, together with the Danish police, came to give us an advanced course, and we had to do training in front of video cameras and stuff. And this one lady, her name was Kathy Churchill. We're still good friends today.
Wow.
Invited me to the University of Witwatersrand to to do a group dynamic session with their master's students for the Public and Development Management School. And that was my entry. I mean, I never thought about training outside the police service up to that day. And when I got there and I had all these wonderful minds, you know, from different industries and institutions, and you're in the middle of this, that was just amazing. And I think it was about a few months later that I bought my discharge, and I decided to do this to do this independently. And I've never worked for anybody since then.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
I've never been employed.
in terms of the timeline, Derek, what sort of year are we talking about? Well, was this year in the early 2000s?
It was 2000.
Yeah.
It was 2000. It was 2000 when I left. There was a 3-4 year period in the police service where I started you know, experimenting with this, and you know, I would take leave and go and train private companies. But there was a day when I just, and this was specifically my interaction with the WITS team was wow, you know, I need to get into this mindset. I need the stimulation.
So that was almost like
that was
a career catalyst, you know, that launched you, that catapulted you into this different kind of arena of being a trainer, strategist, etc., etc. So the police force was merely a stepping stone. It was just
definitely. Yeah, no, definitely. My intent was never to be a good policeman. My intent was to be a good trainer.
Yeah.
And I sacrificed for that, you know, because I mean, I was quite well qualified. At that stage, I already had 2 qualifications, a degree and a national diploma, and I could very easily go up in the ranks. You know, that was a possibility. But for me, the training was more important. Of course, something else I have to mention is about for 10 years after that, I worked in South Africa. So my first break came with the international market with a company called Marcus Evans.
All right. Yeah.
And
they're global market leaders. So I think, again,
yeah,
with your vision, working with the best in the industry.
No, that was an amazing experience. It was an amazing journey, the Marcus Evans journey. They were in South Africa at that stage, and they only got me as a South African local trainer. And then one time I trained in negotiation skills, and I think NUMSA, you know, the South African Metal Workers Union. There was one of them there, and the next thing, Marcus Evans got a contract for training a few thousand people. You know, so I put money into their account with giving a good service, and I also got that contract. And then what happened is Marcus Evans moved out of South Africa. They only had a small office here, and their main office was in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and you know, they still had the memory of me, so they continued using me, and that took me throughout the world. I mean. People don't believe when I say this, but there were times when I actually had 2 maxi passports, you know, those thick passports. I would finish them. I would finish a maxi passport in a year.
Wow.
You know, that's how much we would. I think at this point I have about nine maxi passports fully stamped. But obviously, you know, with the world changing like this and us also getting older, you know, those things also come and go.
So I mean, Marcus Evans and other clients certainly offered you kind of a jet setting kind of career as a trainer, and it really catapulted into this global arena. So what would you regard? I mean, you've been in 27 countries, you've traveled the world. What would you regard? Is it possible for you to pinpoint maybe your top 3 career highlights where you could really say, wow, that was really up, even in 2020, this still stands out for me as one of my career highlights. And maybe if I could just double up on that question and say, if you had to give advice to other trainers who've got a similar vision, who've got similar passion, who also have a dream of, you know, operating on this global stage, what would you say are the critical success factors to enable them to achieve, you know, this kind of dream that they might have?
Okay. Well, career highlights. My first big thing was with the South African police when they chose a very small group of trainers to train the management team of the police. And I was one of these people. I think they chose 7 people, you know, and I was one of those 7 people. That was quite a big thing because that put me in a different league, you know. One day I was still training people in the police college, you know, rookies. And the next thing, you know, I was training high-level police officers in management. So that was quite a big thing. And that changed my career forever, because even today I'm still focusing on executive teams. You know, that's the group of people I focus on. That's my niche market, would be boards of directors.
Like a kind of a career boost, a confidence boost.
A hell of a confidence boost, because you're a junior guy and you work with these senior people, you know, and I found out that these are just people and they don't really know that much. And there's an obligation on them to know that much. So they're often more serious about the training. You know, these guys, when they come to a training session, they really want to learn, and they're not there for the certificate or for the getaway or anything of that sort, or for the food. These guys are really there to learn something, and that was good, and that stuck with me, and I stuck with that crowd. I did. There were times. I mean, times get hard for trainers that I trained, frontline staff and so forth. I'm not saying that's a bad group to train. I'm just saying that wasn't my crowd. You know, I molded myself into that. So that was the first one. The second one was in the year 2000 with when I started a company with a colleague of mine. He's a psychologist, industrial psychologist, Marius Pretorius.
Yes.
And we had a Robben Island diversity experience. That was big.
Right. Yes. I remember that.
That was huge.
Yeah. I didn't directly participate, but I do remember it made quite a bit of waves, literally, in the industry.
No, immense. I mean, there's so many. I think to date, I actually searched my name the other day on Google, and I saw a few books there where they mentioned us in terms of the Robben Island diversity experience, and academic papers, in published papers, journal articles. I believe there's probably about 15 or so on the Robben Island diversity experience. So it was a big thing.
That's high impact.
Yeah, no, that changed us. That also gave us capital to get into this market, you know, and become a training provider. Absolutely. And the last one would be Orgtology. You know,
right.
What I've done is taken all my years and years of learning and put this into a model and say, well, this is a new way of doing something, and that seems to work quite well. We've already got a number of companies that run on Orgtology systems, and so that would be the three.
Is it an alternative to the Balanced Business Scorecard?
It's alternative to many things, and yes, it is definitely alternative to the Balanced Scorecard. The problem we have currently is that most organizations, in the 80s, when project management came along, everybody ran on this project thing. So everybody is very much project-based, and the Balanced Scorecard too is very much a project-based, strategy-based organization. Tool. But the reality is that most of what happens in organizations are process-based things. They're not project-based things. They don't begin and end. They cycle.
Yes.
If you take a cleaner cleans the floor every day. A receptionist has to answer the phone every day, you know. And yet we want to push this project approach onto people who do process-based work.
Yeah.
For instance, a cleaner now, you know, gets evaluated on a performance assessment, and it says to the cleaner that, you know, you get 4 out of 5, and he's like, why do I get 4 out of 5? The floor's clean. Yeah. And then you say, well, there's got to be room for improvement. What improvement? What must he lick the floor? Must the receptionist pick up the phone 3.5 times faster than yesterday? So
floor polish. That's.
So we need and you even see it with programs such as Microsoft Teams, Monday.com. It's very project focused, and it confuses people because 90% of what we do are process-based work. Yeah. Even training, you know, you call it a project, but you've got a certain ritual. You get to the training room, you set up your stuff. Yeah. You go and speak to the sponsor. You know, there's a process going on, and that's most of what we do. So Otology is really about bringing balance between these two things, and not working in a linear. There's a strong linear way of thinking. I mean, if you go to a business school, we've done MBAs. You know, that one of the first things they teach you is that vision is where you want to go and mission is how you get there. But that's a very linear approach, and if you think more than 5 minutes about that statement, it doesn't make sense, because it means there's an annihilation of the mission. Where in Otology, we would rather say that purpose is who you are, and intent is what you want to do with that. You know, so if you want to translate that back to mission and vision talk, then that would be mission is who you are, and intent is what you want to do with that. You know, that puts a huge difference. The last statement I made looks at dual existence, not linear from point A to point to point Z.
Makes
So
a lot of
that's
sense.
basically what Otology is. So yes, it changes the balance scorecard quite significantly.
All right. So you've established the International Orgtology Institute. Can you tell us a bit about
Yes.
that, and how do we access, if you'd like to attend that program, or your website, or just be part of that process, If you could just give us some sort of
Yeah.
direction in that regard.
It's very exciting. It's the reason we've created the International Otology Institute is to have some type of neutral regulator. Anything new needs to be regulated. Otherwise, people grab it and they do something else with it. So, the institute's job is it's a non-profit organization, and it's there to regulate the practice, the training, the consulting of Otology. Just on that note, Orgtology, the word is a combination of organization and logy, the Greek word logy. So it basically says the science of organization, which is a scientific way of looking at organizational design, strategy development, etc., etc. So that's the institute. We've got a current program running on Facebook, and it's the concept we have there is that you do the program, we don't charge you a cent. You can do it at no cost. If you want to write the exam, then there's an exam fee, and the exam would then be through the International Otology Institute. So we're literally giving the stuff for free to people and say, well, do this. If it interests you, then go on. So we've got 4 courses basically that you have to do to become what we call an Otologist. The one is an introduction course where we explain the basic theories and principles. The second one would be on organizational design. We believe that organizations are going to change drastically in terms of design from now onwards, with the combination of COVID and the fourth industrial revolution, cyber physical systems doing a lot of what humans could do before. So organizational design. Then a third course would be strategy. And then fourthly would be leadership. So those are the four areas that the Institute basically trains people in. And anybody's welcome to join the
contact details. Just in the meantime, I will put it up at the end of the conversation as well. But just so that people can jot this down.
Well, they could just visit the website orgtology.org. So it's org, tology.org, and or they could just contact us there on one of those details there.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to mention that to do the Orgtology training, a degree is a requirement. So somebody has to have at least a bachelor's degree.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that one of the requirements in the latest studies is to publish an academic paper with a recognized journal.
Well, I think with all international accreditations, the entry requirement would always be university level degree. So I don't think it's out of sync with the expectations in the global market. So that's interesting contacting Derek. I've got up his contact details, the website, also his cell phone number, and also you're welcome to drop him an email. And I think Derek will talk about the scope of professional services that he does offer, but I think you'll see that he offers a whole bouquet of different services. I think Derek will get to that very shortly. So Derek, apart from what you spoke about earlier on, having this vision, having this passion, having this drive for success, the hunger that you've described, are there any other critical success factors that you could attribute to your longevity over 25 years as a global trainer, as a strategist, as the originator of Orgtology? Anything else that you would like to share with the audience at this stage?
It's difficult, Charles, because the reality is that you build a career around a personality. There's also a bit of so it's very hard for me to tell somebody else, these are the things that you should do. I think everybody has their own triggers and their own things that excite them. I've seen trainers that I mean, you probably recall a guy by the name of Edward de Bono. He wrote the book The Six Thinking Hats.
Yeah.
That guy became he became a multi-millionaire, and he's a very boring trainer. I mean, he literally sits down. I remember him sitting down next to one of those overhead projectors, and he literally sits down and writes on this projector the whole time. But yet he had audiences that fill up the room. Then you have somebody like Tony Robbins, these are all big level guys, Stephen Covey. So it's hard. I would say what you said. There needs to be passion. There needs to be vision. And I believe that what's very important is you got to like people. you know, you know, it's going to be bloody hard to get into this industry if you don't like being amongst people, and you got to have, you got to feel comfortable at least to stand up in front of a room full of people and talk to them with confidence. When you stand there, people need to see confidence. They want to see somebody who knows what they're talking about. You can't have somebody who you know, apologizes the whole time for forgetting things and so forth. So there's a certain type of character that I think fits this role. I don't necessarily think it's an extrovert, sorry, because a lot of people see trainers as extroverts, but I've met a lot of good introverted trainers.
Yeah.
I
think it's a big misconception that the best trainers are extroverts, you know, with these extremely outgoing personalities, and, you know, personalities larger than life, you know, that fill up the entire training room. But I think you're right. You know, the best trainers tend to be introverts, especially those trainers that need to travel a lot. I think more so than anybody can relate to that. You know, from 8 until 4, you know, it's okay to be an extrovert. But from 4 o'clock till 8 o'clock the next morning, when you're stuck in a hotel room on your own and you're dining alone and you're traveling alone, then the introverts really come into the element, and that's really where the extroverts struggle, because they just don't have,
absolutely,
you know, to draw the energy from within. So yeah,
absolutely. It's a lonely job. It's a very lonely. People don't realize that, but professional training is really a lonely job. It's a lot of lonely hours on aeroplanes and airports. And you and I know, you know, I mean, we've sat in airports and we've waited for flights and missed flights, and you're in your hotel room, and I mean, it's a bloody lonely job. That's
and I think this is one of the purposes and the objectives of talking to titans of training, because we want to create a voice for the trainer, the platform, like I said, to showcase and the work of trainers like yourself. Like you said, it's a very lonely profession, and sometimes people just need some sort of sounding board, you know, just somebody to listen to, or somebody that they can draw inspiration from. So that's really, I think, the value of this type of conversation, where people can relate to what you're saying, and they can also draw courage from your journey as well. Derek, if we could move on. So I think we all know COVID-19 is, you know, probably the most topical global talking point at the moment, and it's really had a negative impact on the training industry, in fact, the entire economy. So if you could just share with us, how has COVID-19 impacted on your work? How have you responded to COVID-19? And is there any kind of advice that you could share with people maybe that are struggling right now, just to cope with the whole, you know, the negative atmosphere, you know, the economy that's not looking too promising at this stage? How have you responded to COVID-19, the global pandemic?
That's a good, well, that's probably the top question at this day and time. I felt COVID-19 long before other trainers felt it, because I work internationally. So, you know, in February this year, our work stopped. And I'm not saying slow down, it literally stopped, because, you know, for me to do what I have to do, I have to get onto an airplane. So before the lockdown hit South Africa, I was already in trouble, because, you know, I couldn't get on an airplane to go outside the borders of South Africa, which was problematic. I mean, a lot of my training are in the Middle East and in the Far East, and this just ended. So I felt it quite early, which I think is a good thing, because when it hit South Africa, I was quite aware of what's going on. I've got a lot of connections all over the world, so I phoned them, and I could pick up that this is not something that's going to be gone in a few months, and it's unlikely that it's going to be gone in the next 2 years. So what I've done is I've immediately went online. You know, I tried to get online. It's very difficult, because there's so much other trainers competing. You know, there's so many platforms. I think I've been contacted dozens of times by people trying to offer me a new platform or a new online learning model. But they are literally, it's like the taxi industry. It's swamped. And so the challenge now is it's not really to go online, because I mean you have to do that, but it's being careful not to just sink into the masses now. There's so much online platforms and so much training companies trying to get in. You know, there's some of these platforms that would push 1,000 trainers in there with their little video clips and so forth, and you got to try and stand out from that. And unfortunately, that there's no there's no tried and tested method because this is a new situation for us all. What I've done from my side is I've combined my consulting career with my training career. So what I do now is I give online consulting to people in, for instance, strategy development. But with that, I would say, well, you know, we need to train you as well. So I'm literally selling training experiences with consulting experiences as a package, and I'm also acting as an advisor, you know, to companies online.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very hard to try and find a mainstream or a model. You'll have to do something unique now. I think that's the trick here. You need to get the attention of people in a very unique way. If you're just going to join one of these big, what's the big American platform, Udemy,
Coursera.
Yeah, if you join these things, you're just going to become one of millions. You're just going to disappear in the crowd. So at this point, my advice to any trainer is use your personality, use what you have at your disposal, all your knowledge, all your skills, and do something that stands out. Yeah. Something that's not, at this point, I would advise that you do something that's not what other people are doing. If you're going to do what other people are doing, you're just going to become one of many. Thousands. And that, you know, Charles, when we trained, we were seen as experts. You're seen as an HR guru, you know. So when Dr. Charles Cotter comes to a place, then somebody knows that there's somebody yet who has a lot of experience in this and who's been around the block. And the same with me with strategy or organizational design. You know, people would get me because of my the road that I've walked in this industry. But now we're sitting in a situation where there's thousands of people, low-level trainers, high-level trainers, you know, that we're all, it's like the reset button has been pressed on the training industry, and we're all just in the same boat now.
Yeah.
So from scratch, we have to lift ourselves up.
Yeah, it wasn't the pause button, it was the reset button.
It was a reset button. It's a reset button, yeah.
I think, thanks, Derek. I think it's really good advice. You know, I'm taking notes as you are just sharing these experiences, your expertise. I'm hearing a lot about brand equity, you know, the importance of positioning yourself as a global thought leader, you know, using the tools of your trade, capitalizing on your experience, differentiation. I think you've repeatedly mentioned that as a critical success factor. And almost, you know, everybody's talking about, you know, migration to online training, you know, becoming a virtual trainer. I think we need to look beyond that. I think what I'm hearing you describe is more like becoming a performance advisor, you know, and harnessing training. Training is one of the strings that you should have in your bow, but, you know, consulting, coaching, and of, you know, the experience is the same, the expertise is the same. The only thing really that's changed is the delivery platform. It's now online. You're now an online management consultant, and you're advising your clients online. And I think it's very important that you do stand out. Otherwise, your clients are going to look elsewhere.
I think at the time, and we've had many of these conversations back in the SAPTA days, but one thing I think that's also important is that you've got to be, you know, that for many years there's been this thing that trainers are not knowledge experts. They're just facilitators. So you can train anything because you can facilitate any process. Yeah. And I think COVID-19 is now proving that to be quite, well, I don't want to say, you know, nonsensical would be a hard word, but I think COVID-19 is proving that the trainers who have more to offer than just training skills. So apart from being able to train in HR, for instance, you're also an HR expert. That's counting quite a lot of points now. And that's the people who companies are roping in now. You know, they don't just need a trainer. They need somebody who can actually give them advice, who can give them guidance in the field.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think for a long time, if you read all the future of the workplace studies and those reports, they did see an emphasis shift from being a generalist to becoming a specialist. And I think COVID-19 has probably just accelerated that transition. But like you correctly said, if you're not a specialist, if you don't offer business valued learning solutions, in this case, then I'm afraid to say, you know, you're going to be lost in this oversaturated market right now. And I think it's very important. So Derek,
I think your words value addition, I think, is very important. What value are you adding? I think that's the key.
So Derek, just give us an update. We're now June 2020. we're on the cusp of maybe coming out of COVID-19 and all the lockdown and related restrictions. So what projects are you currently working on? What programs can you currently offer to the market? And maybe just fast forward, what opportunities do you have in the pipeline at the moment?
Well, I've been lucky with my consulting work, so I still have my consulting customers, you know, and so I'm continuing with that. I think that clients are starting to realize that organizations have to continue to survive. We have to protect our organizations. You know, there's a lot of people protecting people, but if you take organizations away from humanity, we become animalistic again. We become primitive again. It's the only thing that separates us from a very wild world is organizations, the ability to organize. So I think that's quite important to you know, for me to keep that going. In the training side, I've reduced my training services. I've realized that it's important to become more of a specialist now. So you know, where I used to do 50 training interventions, different types of trainings, I now only do 3. So I'm currently specializing on on organizational design, strategy development, leadership. But my leadership is also executive leadership. So it's not just your normal leadership stuff. It's also the more hardcore things like the King Report and corporate governance and strategy and that type of thing. So those are the things that I'm currently focusing on, Charles, and they're all online at this stage. I believe that what you said about blended learning is correct. I think that's the future. You know, you're going to have something online, and you're going to have to be able to also visit people at their premises. That, I mean, the borders can't stay locked forever. At some point, we have to continue with life.
Absolutely. Well, I think Germany, probably the most progressive European country at the moment, has already opened up their borders for international travel with some of the European business partners. So I think it's just a matter of time. Maybe towards the end of the year, we'll be able to do international travel again. But I do agree with you. Blended learning is probably the right way that we need to position our business models at this stage. So Derek, we're moving towards the end of the conversation. So just to summarize, if you, maybe in 2 separate responses, if you had to give advice to, for example, people like myself that are well established in the training industry in terms of how do we prosper, looking to the future, but also in a separate response, if you could maybe give advice to, if you could turn the clock back, you know, when you were 20 and at the SAPS Training College, you know, people that are wanting to crack the industry, people that would like to break into the industry, or even novices, people maybe that probably 2020 was the worst year to start out as an independent trainer because we didn't even get through the first quarter and COVID-19 struck the economy. So what advice would you give to well-established trainers to prosper in the future, or to continue and to maintain, you know, this future-proofing and also become future fit? And for the novice trainer or somebody that wants to break into the industry, what advice would you share with them?
I think if somebody wants to break into the industry now, it's an opportunity. You know, we've got 2 very big things happening in 2020. We've got COVID-19 that basically put a reset button on everything, on the economy as a whole. Yeah. And we have the 4th industrial revolution, and what's happening now is this COVID-19 is pushing us into the arms of the 4th industrial revolution. It's expediting the need for cyber physical systems. I don't think COVID-19 is going to go away and we're just going to go on with our usual day-to-day business. I believe that a lot of the things that were brought in by COVID-19, like, you know, cyber meetings and so forth, will stay. So I think it's an opportunity. It's a new world, and the young trainer, you know, immediately can start competing in this new world where a lot of the older trainers would try and hold on to old practices, which I think should be exploited. I think a creative young trainer now has a good career. You know, also what COVID-19 has done, it's opened the world for us in terms of digital communication. Most trainers never thought about training outside the borders of South Africa, but now, I mean, it doesn't really matter where you are. So I think there's a good, I think you need to get into the online thing, but not with the masses. You know, you need to try and find a way to do this where you stand out, where there's something that you have. If you can add value addition to that, of course, you know, there's the usual things as well. If you're a young trainer, you need to up your game in terms of your field. If you want, you know, you need to become an expert at something.
Yeah.
A lot of people will tell you that's not necessary. If you can train, you can train. But the hard reality is that nobody's going to pay you 25,000 Rand a day because you're just another trainer. They're going to pay you 25 to 50,000 Rand a day if you add value to the, to the content, to the substance of what you give. So that would be my advice: is to get into the whole new online way of doing things, and secondly, to make yourself an expert at something. Not a generalist is a very replaceable person.
Yeah.
You know, you can replace a generalist with anybody, but you can't replace an expert.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like innovation and expertise are the currency of today and tomorrow. So I think if you want to prosper as a trainer, it's something that you really need to invest in. Your digital literacy, like you've described, and sure you're aware of the fact that, you know, the Chinese symbol for crisis, it's almost a dichotomy, because it also poses opportunity, and I think that's what you're describing, is that exploit opportunities. There's always going to be gaps in the market, and we need to create that niche where we can fill that gap in the market. But like you said, you know, through innovation and expertise, I think that's very important that we do that.
There's one more thing I would like to add there, Charles, and that's collaboration. I believe that collaboration is extremely important. You need to build people around you. You know, you need to connect with other trainers and communicate with them. Yeah. It's very important, and that's something that's been missing in the training industry for, you know, you and I both know this. For many years, people they don't talk to each other. It's everybody for themselves.
Yeah. So we need to create an abundance mindset. You and I have spoken about this for many years, as opposed to a scarcity mindset. And I've always said, you know, I developed a future fitness code, which I published a few years ago. And I did say one of those competencies is to be a hyper-connected collaborator. So you've got to have this like almost business community that you surround yourself with, but people that enhance your value proposition, not people that are just
absolutely
to exploit the relationship. You need people that can really contribute and pave the way forward and open doors, like you've been doing for many years, for many different trainers, you know, being a door open and paving the way forward, and through a referral system, you know, introducing people to your network. I think long may you continue to do that, and long may you continue to succeed. I think for us, you are regarded as a leader in the industry, very inspirational, and also I think we can always count on your support. I think, you know, whenever somebody has got a difficult situation or difficult question, I think Derek Hendrikz is somebody that will always assist with advice and you know, just sharing like you've done with us today. I really do appreciate your time. You're the very first guest of Talking to Titans of Training, and I think you and I have been in association, I think, for about 15 years, if I'm not mistaken. I think
it's a long time.
You're my very first guest, and indeed you are a titan of training. So thank you for sharing your expertise journey. I think I've taken notes. Believe it or not, I've taken notes. I've jotted down quite a few things, and I'm sure that you'll continue to support this initiative, Talking to the Titans of Training.
Thank you, Charles. It's been great talking to you, and thank you for everything that you've been doing for training. You're
Derek, any final thoughts from your side? I'm just going to put up your contact details for the last time, and then I think we're going to sign out. I'm just going to share my contact details, and I think we can take it from there. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share, Derek?
I think I've said everything that I wanted to. I think what what companies, whoever watches this, needs to also realize, that trainers, professional trainers, are the transporters of knowledge. They are really very important people to an organization. And it's important that trainers also see themselves as that. We're the transporters of knowledge. We're the people that take knowledge from, almost like the honeybees pollinates flowers. We pollinate organizations. And in that, I would say that get as much as experience as you can. You need to work with as much different companies and cultures and industries as possible. I don't think it's a good thing to stick to one industry or to one location. I think it's good to become a true transporter of knowledge, a pollinator of knowledge.
Yeah, it's a very good metaphor. Thanks for that. Derek, thanks for your time. It's been a great privilege listening to your experience and your wisdom. Please enjoy the weekend, and
Thank you,
I'm sure
Charles.
you'll be supporting the other titans who are interviewed on this initiative.
Great honor to be interviewed by you. You yourself are the top titan of training. You've been in this industry for a long time, so it's really been great. Thank you, Charles.
Thanks, Derek. It's been a privilege. You keep well.
Keep well. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So just the final thing from my side, just like to share my 5 pillars of training subject matter expertise. As Derek has alluded to, I am a blended learning practitioner, so I continue to do face-to-face training given the very strict restrictions that we have, but also I'm an online learning navigator, and my areas of expertise resides in these 5 pillars, namely strategic human resources management, strategic learning and development, management and leadership development. Also, I refer to it as power skills and not soft skills. I think there's a negative connotation. So emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, interpersonal skills. These are training programs that I can also offer to various companies, and also business communication, in particular report writing and other types of business presentation skills, etc. I've also shared my contact details and social media presence, so you're welcome to send me an email. You're welcome to contact me telephonically. Also YouTube, I mentioned that at the start of this video clip. Please subscribe to my channel. Please click on the notify button to get the subsequent episodes of the Talking to Titans of Training. And of course, for the latest updates, please like the video clip. You'll also find me very active on LinkedIn, so you're welcome to connect with me. Also Twitter, Facebook. I have a company page on Facebook, and also my portfolio of slideshow presentations, well in excess of 150,000, for which I have over 750,000 global views. Please welcome to check that out. Also, I've recently received accreditation as a trusted trainer by the Global Training Quality Assurance Authority course conductor. So from our side, Charles Cotter, I'd like to thank you for listening to this video clip, and please be on the lookout as from next week, both of the interview with Derek, but also the upcoming interview with Graham Lateghan will be published on YouTube. And then I've got some very interesting guests lined up who are indeed titans of training. So this is your navigator, Dr. Charles Cotter, signing out, talking to the titans of training. I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you.